Okay, our next topic for today is about the digital self. So it is called the development and expression of the self and identity in social networking sites. Okay, let's have a quick exercise. No? So for before we proceed with our lesson, I would like you to have a quick FB or Instagram look. Tingnan natin muna kung ano yung laman ng ating mga Facebook and Instagram. Alright? So, what's in my Facebook or Instagram account? Ano bang meron dyan? Anong mga photos? Or what are the things that you share in your Facebook? Are there common themes in your posts? So makikita mo ba na magagawan mo ba ng kwento kung ano yung mga nakapost sa yung especially in your Facebook account or your Instagram account or other social networking sites? No? So what are they? What do they say about you or your identity? No? So can you can you write it down? Can you do an analysis of what is the common theme or what are the common themes in your posts? All right, maybe I would be putting this again in your assessment. No? I would like you to write down the themes in your posts kung meron kayo. All right. So, according to the Facebook growth in the world between 2011 Q1 and 2012 Q1, this is our source is from Internet World Statistics, www.internetworldwidestats.com, facebook.htm. No? Facebook users worldwide at ito ay nung 2012 pa, siguro mas marami pa sa ngayon. No? There are around 835,525,280 users between 2011 and 2012. So nakita nyo sa slide na to kung gaano karami pataas ng pataas. No? Alright, so let's talk about you as adolescents and the social networking side. No? So you are already familiar that adolescence is a period of physical, cognitive, and emotional changes, no, that individuals undergo as they navigate from childhood to adulthood. Kasi this is now a bridge, no, or a transition period, no, by which from being a child going to adulthood. So all of the areas in your body, and that would include your physical changes as well as your cognitive changes and emotional changes happen during this period. So because this is a transition period for identity construction, no, of an autonomous self. So therefore, it is said to be that there is a need for personal space because of what is happening, what is going on in an individual. This is according to Mac Adams in 2001 and Erickson in 1968 and Mac Adams 1993 as cited and McLean, Bean and Formier in 2010. Okay, now let us continue. What is the connection between this period, the adolescence period, and that of the social networking site? So now, the social networking sites like the Facebook and Instagram and other things, would provide the needed personal space. As mentioned in the last slide, because of what is happening, in the different changes that the adolescent has been experiencing. Therefore, the adolescent would like to have a personal space, and therefore, this SNS would provide the needed personal space and avenue for identity construction through anonymity, connectivity, and interactivity. So parang sinasabi na swak lamang, no, yung pagkakaroon ng social network site kasi nga gusto ng mga teenagers or adolescents to have their own personal space, no? And this personal space would be provided by the SNS. So therefore, this is an avenue, this is a place where adolescents would build their own identity at papaano na nila ito ginagawa, no? Sa pamamagitan ng pagiging anonymous, no? Kasi pwede silang mag-build ng sarili nilang identity through SNS, no? And they would be able to connect, they would be able to interact with other people. That's according to the research of De Kerk Hope, as cited in Magzewi in 2002. All right, so let's talk about the adolescent's self-esteem and SNS. No? So when we talk about adolescent self-esteem, this would pertain to three important things. Ito yung tinatawag nating self-concept. Ano ba yung mga konsepto tungkol sa sarili? No? So that's a self-concept. Ano ba yung mga pagtingin natin sa ating sarili? No? So, meron ding tinatawag na personal self-esteem and the collective self-esteem. No? So, yung antas na pang-personal, kung gaano ba kataas o kababa ang pagtingin natin sa sarili. At the same time, meron din tayong tinatawag na collective, no? Pangmaramihang, no? O kolektibong o panggrupong pagtingin tungkol sa sarili natin. So, what is the level of our self-esteem as a people, as a group? That's according to Barker in 2009 and Cracker and Luthanen in 1992, Medizade in 2010, Stefanon, Nakaf and Rosa in 2011, and Valkenburg et al. In 2006. Sila yung mga nagsagawa ng study connecting the adolescent self-esteem and the social networking site or the SNS. No? So, sinasabi sa mga studies na to na adolescent self-esteem is affected, no? Yung pagtingin natin sa sarili natin ay naapektuhan, no? Kung papaano by their perceived evaluation of other people about them. So, may kinalaman according sa mga pag-aaral, no? Ang ating level ng pagtingin sa sarili, no? Papaano natin mini-measure perceived evaluation, no, of other people. So, kung ano ba ang pagtingin sa atin ng ibang tao, ay naapektuhan ang pagtingin natin sa sarili natin. No? So, especially during this period, there is an impact in terms of others' perception to your self-esteem. So, adolescents tend to overestimate the extent to which other people evaluate them. So, minsan overestimate kung paano tayo tinitingnan o hinuhusgahan ng ibang tao sa social media. No? So, as a consequence, they become preoccupied with how they present themselves. So, syempre, dahil alam natin na tayo ay hinuhusgahan, pinapaganda natin yung sarili natin. That's an example. Ako, gumagamit din ako niyan. Nagpi-filter ako. Syempre, you present yourself as someone who is having such kind of what? Of identity. So, our presentation with others is because we think that that's how people would perceive that. So what happens is they package themselves by hiding their undesirable features and by highlighting their pleasant ones. So I think this is not only about adolescents. No, a great majority of people will also or would also do that. Of course, you don't want people to see our undesirable features, especially for adolescents. So, kasi meron din naman na wala silang pakialam, those who are already adults. No? But for adolescents, that is always the tendency, to present what is desirable and what is pleasant. No? Thus, when given good feedback, they feel better about themselves. Na kumbaga, nakasalalay sa sasabihin ng mga tao sa Facebook or in other SNS, no? Kung ano yung mga comments nila, kung ano yung pagla-like nila, nakasalalay sa kung anong klaseng pagtingin sa sarili meron tayo. No? That's according to the study of Barker in 2009, Medizade in 2010, Walkenbach et al. In 2006. Okay, now social affiliation and communication are essential factors in adolescent self-esteem. So, ibig sabihin nito, it is important for adolescents to be affiliated, no? And to communicate with other people in the SNS, no? Kasi mahalaga ito, essential factors nga, no? Sa pagtingin sa sarili, no? So adolescents tend to feel good about themselves when they are happy with their group membership and when their social support is available. I think this has been done many years ago, but I think more and more this is true during this time that hindi tayo nakakalabas because of the pandemic. So the SNS serves as the avenue for the social needs. So especially as I have said, especially today, and more and more, we need, no, to be connected with other people. All right. So identity construction in Facebook. So there are two types of identity construction in Facebook. The first one is the personal online identity construction. So we can actually create our own personal online identity. Okay? So kung ano ang gusto mong maipakita, kung sino ka sa ibang tao in the Facebook, pwede mong magawa yan sa pamamagitan ng pagpo-post ng kung ano ang gusto mong makita ng tao tungkol sa iyo, no? Meron ding tinatawag na social online identity construction. So ano yung social online identity construction? Yung social online identity construction would refer, no, to the kind of identity that you would like to have socially and online. So, ito yung pinapakita mo, which is taliwas or pwedeng taliwas sa kung anong merong personal identity ka in your personal level. Alright? So, adolescence identity construction is a process of forming an autonomous self presented to an audience. Alright? So, sinasabi dito na because adolescents would form their own identity, their own personal space. So in Facebook, you can actually present yourself independently, to who you would like to be presented to your audience or to the people or to your friends in the social media. Now, personal identity attributes of an individual which are not shared with other people. So, meron kang personal identity kasi na para sa'yo lang. No? But there is also a social identity. No? These are aspects of individual's concept that would have something to do about your knowledge and your membership with social group. No? Kaya sinasabi natin na meron tayong personal identity na sa'yo lang at meron din namang social identity na ipinapakita mo sa ibang tao. Okay? Now, Facebook as a controlled setting becomes a venue for the college students to engage in their identity construction. Kaya naman, mabenta kasi you can control this, no? You can control ano yung mga bagay na gusto mong i-share. Kaya ito ay nagiging magandang venue for you guys, no, to engage in the process of construction about your identity. So, you present yourselves through wall posts, photos, and profiles in such a way that convey an image of yourselves that you would want your audience to see. So, yun. How do you present yourself? In your Facebook account, no? Gagawa ka ngayon ng isang personality na gusto mong ipakita kung sino ka sa ibang tao. So, this Facebook is a space for the participants to explore and create their own personal and social identities. Diba? So, yun ang ginagamit para ipakita natin kung sino tayo. So, therefore, online or Facebook network and other social networking sites, just like Facebook, would actually have a greater role in construction of one's identity, either personal or social. Okay, so Facebook or other SNS um, would become a platform. No, this would become a platform to create a space for self-revelation. Pinapakita mo kung sino ka, and your assertion, your belief system, no, ano yung mga pinaniniwalaan mo. You also project needs and preferences, no. Parang hubad na hubad ka na pagdating sa social media kasi pinapakita mo yung mga needs mo. Alimbawa, needs mo for friends, no? So paano mo malalaman 'yan? Kasi you post pictures in your walls na lagi mong kasama ang mga friends mo. So ito yung need mo, or your family, or mahilig kang mag-alaga ng mga pets, no? So that's your need, no? You prefer this kind of audience or your crowd, no? You are with this kind of people, no? So, aside from that, you also create virtual surrogate group. No? So, anong ibig sabihin noon? Because especially at this time of the pandemic na wala tayong masyadong socialization process, wala tayong masyadong mapuntahan, so you can create a substitute for that. No? Ibig sabihin ng surrogate group. You experiment on different identity, you know, ano kaya kung ganitong ilagay kong picture, ganito kaya ako, whatever, and so on and so forth. So you can make some experiments. Manage impressions through positive self-presentation. So yung mga impression ng ibang tao sa iyo, ipinapakita mo sa yung as your platform. All right. So disclosure of their personal information, their assertion of who they are or what they want others to see about them. Yon, no? So some would write their personal information, yung iba kung ano-anong inilalagay naman na taliwas sa kanilang sarili, no? So Facebook provides them their online personal space, 'di ba? Because you can express yourself there, which is an essential aspect in exploring their identity. So mas malakas ito sa adolescence talaga kasi ito mismo yung personal space mo. So that's according to the studies of Hart et al. In 1997, Hetherington cited, and okay, in 2002. Okay, so ito yung mga sinasabi ng mga sa study nila, no? Sabi ng isa, when I was still in first year and very active on Facebook, I would post pictures of myself going out with my friends. And many people would see it, of course. No? They would point out that I had become different from who I was back in high school. Someone who didn't have much of social life, but would rather go home straight from school. No? So, yon, nagkaroon ngayon ng ibang impressions, no? Ibang pagkakilala. No? So, uh, medyo outgoing, tapos ngayon, wala ng social life, no? Nakikita nila, oy, magkaiba pala yung dati niya, going out with people, no? So, sasabihin nila, iba ka na ngayon, no? Iba noon, iba ngayon. So, may mga ganong mga comments. Okay, sabi naman ng isa, it can be seen in Facebook like what I'm doing can be seen more like my normal self when I'm with my friends. Usually, it can't be seen who I really am when I'm with my family compared to when I'm with my friends. My posts are usually about activities with my friends and with my boyfriend. So, yon, magkaibang mundo ang naipapakita, no? Iba yung identity niya kapag nasa online siya na ipinapakita niya with his or her friends, and then compared to who she or he really is when she or he is with his family. Yun yung mga sample ng sinasabi ng according to studies. No? Facebook Now, let's talk about projecting needs and preferences, which I mentioned already. No? Facebook is a space for the participants to project their emotional needs and preferences. No? So they are able to verbalize or at least depict through their photos and other posts their thoughts and feelings. No? So yung hindi nila kasi naipapahayag, okay, na ipapahayag nila sa pamamagitan ng pag-post ng mga photos and other post their thoughts and feelings na normally they would not be able to express that. No? So this process of projection and airing out of needs and preferences serve as an externalization of their thoughts and feelings, which can help them reflect and reconstruct aspects of themselves. So, ibig sabihin, dun sa study ni McAdams, sinasabi niya na this is a good one because nakaka-air out, no? Kung ano yung mga pangangailangan nila, ano yung mga gusto nila, no? Kasi hindi normally na ipapahayag ito sa hindi online, no? So, pagka nag-post ka nito, nakakatulong ito para lalo mong makita, no, makapag-isip-isip ka kung ano yung mga aspeto ng sarili mo, no? Ganito pala ako, ganito pala yung gusto ko, no? That's in effect that is what this study is telling us. All right. So uh, let's take a look at some of the things that are said to be coming from that study. I just wanted to give voice to the thoughts of teenagers who might not be able to say it. That's according to a participant with low score on self-esteem scale, no? So mababa dun sa psychological test about sa self-esteem scale. Yun nga, sinasabi niya na marami nga palang mga teenagers, no, na hindi talaga nila maipahayag ang kanilang mga iniisip, no? So the social networking site has become a venue for them to be able to express, no, about who they are. Sabi naman ng isa, I like K-pop because of its unique and colorful K-pop dances and fashion interest me, no? So it has become a venue for one to be able to express what he or she wants. It's according to another participant with low self-esteem scale. No? So participants with low self-esteem post photos that depict happy and lively persona. Now, usually daw, sinasabi na, according to the study, yung mga tao who participated in the study that according to the self-esteem scale would actually get a low self-esteem uh, would actually post photos that would show that they are happy, no? And lively, no? Yun yung pinapakita nila, pero sa kabaliktaran, hindi naman talaga ganon ang kanilang tunay na personality o pagkatao. No? So, well, yeah, because they sort of have something to do with my wishing to be stronger, because I haven't been really confident with my ability to be strong, because I feel like I'm not really very strong. So, I sort of use them as my inspiration that someday I will become stronger. So, nagiging na pinapalakas niya ang loob niya kasi nakikita niya na pwede naman akong maging ganito, no? So, yun, participant with low score on self-esteem. All right, so let's continue. So, Miss Lopez kept a small circle, so creating a virtual surrogate group. So, Miss Lopez kept a small circle of friends on ground. However, on Facebook, she networked and interacted with a large number of people, particularly K-pop fans. So, ibig sabihin, konti lang talaga yung kaibigan niya on ground, no? Yung sa, kumbaga, parang tunay na buhay. Pero sa Facebook, she would network, would connect to a lot uh, or large number of people, because of the K-pop fans, no? So another case, Miss Ivler, on the other hand, formed a virtual surrogate group family of her boyfriend whom she seldom met face to face to compensate what she lacked in her own family. So, pwede ka talagang mag-create ng sarili mo, ano, na, na grupo sa pamamagitan ng SNS. No? Kasi, kinocompensate niya yung hindi niya makuha sa kanyang sariling pamilya. So, pagdating sa Facebook, that would be a big help for her, Miss Ivler. So the participants explore and experiment on their identities by trying out different aspects of themselves and new roles. Now, by creating multiple accounts, these adolescents are able to create their different selves coexisting in a virtual world. So, daming ginagawa ng mga kung ano-ano, no? So, para maipakita kung ano ang pwede niyang mapakitang identity sa mga tao. Okay, yung iba, ang daming multiple accounts, no? Para mapakita nila sa isang account, ganito siya. Pagdating sa isang account, ganito siya, ano? So, they could shift from one identity according to who they chose to be at a given time. With multiple Facebook accounts depicting different persona, the self is no longer deemed as a unitary construct but fluid and plural identities, di ba? So, maraming pinapakitang persona, iba-ibang kung anong sarili, no? So, yung sarili ay parang hindi na lang isa, kundi marami, no? Pwede kang maging ganito, pwede kang maging ganyan, no? So, yun. Si Miss Ivler created another account exclusively to her boyfriend and his friends and family members and their very close friend. So, pinapakita doon her role is the girlfriend. Persona here as depicted by her photos is more mature and modest while she is more carefree in her other account. Alam ko may mga gumagawa ng ganyan no? Na yung account niya sa ganito, exclusive for the family. May isang account na ganito, exclusive for ganitong audience, mga friends niya. Another account, ganitong audience. No? So, iba-iba. So, yon. Case of Miss Gomez created an account with a fictitious character. No? So, iba namang pangalan siguro ang ginamit niya. She created a secret account to communicate with her boyfriend if ever she would have one. No? Then to communicate with her prospective online friends. In her survey, response on SNS use not happy with her. Ayun, kasi sa tunay na buhay, ika nga hindi siya masaya. So, gumagawa siya ng sariling account niya na ipakita niya which is more or less, no, opposite of what he or she feels about herself or about her friends. So, this fictitious account could serve as her platform to reveal a different self and to be able to connect with other people and be socially gratified with. So, yun nga, kasi yung hindi mo makuha sa tunay na buhay, in real life, you would be satisfied in your Facebook account. So, yun. Managing impressions and positive self-presentation. Participants depict happy and pleasant dispositions in their Facebook accounts. I think that was already mentioned. No? Showing only their socially desirable features, they construct their ideal selves in front of their audience. No? Pinapakita nila usually yung magaganda lang at ang interpretation dito, yun yung ideal self mo. Kasi mga desirable features. So their self-preservation via Facebook is more strategic compared to their on-ground self-projection. More time to think of which aspects of their personalities or profiles should be presented or which photos depict their best image. So, in my own interpretation, no, syempre naman, kasi gusto natin maganda yung maipapakita natin. Pero, that's how it is in the Facebook and other SNS. We tend to project what is pleasant and what is socially acceptable and socially desirable. Okay, so I like pictures where I look good and decent. It's not much about who I'm with within the photos, but more of how okay I look. That's according to Ramona. Siguro ganyan din ako. Or a lot of us could identify ourselves with that. So, adolescents tend to overestimate the extent to which other people watch and evaluate them. Na? So, minsan na-over talaga. They think they're always on the lookout kasi titingnan sila ng mga tao. Thus, they present their image as ideal as they can be. The feedback that they get from other people becomes their basis for changing aspects of themselves, for hiding information. So, as much as they can, they would like to look good kasi yun ang magiging basis nila, no? About some aspects ng sarili nila para hindi makita kung sino ba talaga sila. So, magandang venue para itago natin kung sino tayo. Okay? So, the results seem to show that SNS, like Facebook, can be a viable venue for identity construction. O, diba? Ito yung pinapakita nating identity. Rather, ito ang gusto nating ipakita sa mga tao kung sino tayo. Now, the question is, what's wrong with that? With using social networking sites as a venue for creating or for constructing our identity. What's wrong with that? Well, sabi nila ng study, it's not the use per se. Hindi yung sa paggamit, but the how it is used. Paano natin ito ginagamit. No? Sinasabi na it becomes unhealthy when it replaces reality. So, paano? When it replaces on-ground social interaction. Ibig sabihin, meron ngayong tinatawag natin na discrepancy, no? Between the ideal self and the real self. No? So, when virtual reality becomes the basis for social or gratification, self-esteem, and social identity. So, magkakaroon ngayon ng kalituhan, hindi sa ibang tao, kundi mismo sa iyo. No? Kasi, there would come a point, a time by which you would no longer be living in the real world. Parang, sabi mo, hindi ako ito pag nandun ka na sa social interaction. So, there would now be a discrepancy, as I have said earlier on, that your real self is in conflict with what you are showing in your social networking site or in Facebook. Hindi ito nagtutugma at maaaring magkaroon ito ng effect, no, saan? Sa sarili mong well-being, because there is a conflict and therefore it has become unhealthy in terms of your mental health. Alright? So, when the person is in constant monitoring of the self, like sino ang nagla-like ng mga pinost mong photos, your status, your activity, and how one fares in comparison to others. Sabihin, bakit yung iba maraming likes, yung ikaw, konti lang ang likes. So, nagkakaroon yan ng effect when personal identity becomes dependent on virtual social identity. No? Parang doon na nakasalalay sa kung ilan ang nag-heart sa iyong post, no? Parang doon na lang nakasalalay ang pagtingin mo sa sarili mo. So, doon nagkakaroon ng danger. Alright? So, when this happens, one can have very weak or diffuse identity. So, pag ganun na ang nangyari, na nakasalalay sa mga posts mo, ang pagtingin mo sa sarili mo, magkakaroon ka ng diffuse identity. Katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, na hindi kasi magkatugma. And you can be very insecure and you become self-absorbed, no? Lagi na lang sarili mo ang iniisip mo, ano yung magandang ipapakita mo. At ang mahirap dito, you would have a very poor social emotional skills. You would not know how to relate with other people anymore, no? Kasi lagi mong tinitingnan kung paano ang pagtingin sa'yo pagka nagsiselfie ka at ipopost mo, no? Okay. So, ayun. I think that's the end of our discussion. These are the references of the study. which I have discussed. What is the summary of all of this, no? Sa mga pinag-usapan natin. Um, as I have said, as discussed, coming from the different studies, social networking site is a good venue, actually, because it provides the needs of the adolescents. But the thing is, it is important for us to be careful, no, about the things that we would like other people to be seen and us as part of our identity, to that of the real self that we are, no. So, because according to the studies, this would actually lead us into some kind of a diffuse identity kapag hindi na nagtutugma ang tunay na kung sino tayo at kung ano yung pinoproject natin sa social media. Because it is important, no, to be real, no? Na kung sino ba talaga tayo ay ideally yun ang dapat na maipapakita natin. So therefore, uh, as adolescents are in the process, or you young people who are in the stage of this adolescent stage, it is important, therefore, to be very careful on how to use and how you make use of the social media in projecting who you are, no? So it is more important to be real, to identify what your strengths are, and also identify what your weaknesses are. But I am not saying, no, and neither the studies would tell us to post negative things or negative things about who we are as persons, no. But what I think the studies are telling us is to be in touch with who we are, because this is more important. Our construction of our identity is not dependent on what other people would tell us. Okay, so it is more important, I think, to engage in real situations, real life situations. What people would tell us when we are with them. Okay, and that it is more important that we engage in social relationships, although right now we are very limited, no? But what we are saying here is um, our identity actually is not dependent on what other people would tell us. So we engage in self-reflection about the kind of persons that we are, rather than what depend on what other people would tell us, especially on the social media.